And we are live with another edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside, as always, by my co-host, Andrew Johnson. And Johnson, I feel like it's only fitting for the first show of the new year, 2026, to start off, but with another super show for us, the first of its incarnation of this new year. And a lot to talk about here on the show tonight. Of course, we have the college football playoff quarterfinals took place just about over a week ago, last week. We have the semifinal matchups kicking off tomorrow night in Phoenix, Arizona. You have the NFL regular season ending this past weekend. We now know the 14 teams in the NFL postseason. We know the matchups going into the wildcard weekend. We know the number one seeds, respectively, in both the NFC and the AFC. So we'll be breaking down what happened in Week 18, previewing the wildcard matchups, and then giving our picks for who we think will go to the Super Bowl this upcoming February.
Yeah, and we can go straight into it. Nick, do you want to go straight into our discussion of what happened in college football this past week?
Yeah, let's start first with the game that happened just about a week ago, up until this recording on Wednesday, January 7th. And that was the game between Miami and Ohio State, a game that of course, everyone was expecting Ohio State to pretty much maybe roll and dominate that game. They were about a 10-point favorite in that matchup against the Hurricanes. And Miami really putting their name on the map in terms of maybe being potentially quote unquote back with this performance. They dominated Ohio State on both sides of the ball, really showing out, especially on defenses. You know, a lot of their key players going into the NFL draft are from that defense, and they showed out in this game. They really stopped Ohio State's offense for the most part. They dominated on the other side of the ball in terms of running the football. Carson Beck didn't really have to make too many big throws to get the job done. Miami wins this game in pretty much convincing fashion, winning 24-14 in the final. They advance into the Fiesta Bowl, where we'll break down their matchup a little bit of who they're facing. You probably know by now who they are facing, but a monumental win, Johnson, for this Miami team that, of course, hasn't won a national championship since the early 2000s, is looking to get the job done this year.
Yeah, Miami has looked like a well-oiled machine, and the decision to keep them in the playoffs over Notre Dame is aging like fine wine day by day.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you really can't, if you're one of these, teams, if you're Notre Dame, you can't really make another case of why you should have been in. I think maybe you have one case, and that's about it. I think you know exactly where I'm going with that for what happened in the Rose Bowl game. But yeah, it's just they have really shown out in this a 10-3 win at Texas A&M. That was a convincing win enough in terms of how their defense played in that game, and their defense held Ohio State to 14 points, considering the fact that you had Julian Sain, who was a Heisman candidate this season. You have all those playmakers on the offensive side: Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith, just to name a few on the receiving core, and they really were not big of not huge factors in this game. They made some big plays later on in the game, but in that first half, that's where Miami really dominated this matchup to the point where it was really impossible for Ohio State to come back. And they did make it a 3-point game in the fourth quarter, but Miami did a great job of just milking the clock and making sure that the Buckeyes wouldn't have a chance to win.
Yeah, no, absolute madness, and I don't even know what to say about this game, Nick. Uh,
The
where do you
shocker.
even, yeah, where do you even begin? Just an absolute domination, and
Yeah.
the writing was on the wall for Ohio State the last half of this season too. They really didn't have that many impressive wins. You know, you go into Michigan, you win the Big House. Congratulations, you finally get the monkey off the back when it comes to winning at Michigan or just beating Michigan this decade. Uh, but other than that, they looked like the struggle against decent teams. And even the beginning of the year, when Texas wasn't good, like when Texas was not good beginning of the year, Ohio State, they definitely were not good if they were only going to beat them by a touchdown. So,
Yeah.
can you say overhyped?
I think Ohio State got exposed in the fact that that game against Texas was at the time a good win, but then Texas showed why they weren't really a great team for that first half of the season. They at least showed in the second half of the season that they were playing better, but that first half of the year for the Texas Longhorns was really bad. And Ohio State really hadn't been challenged all season. I think that was the only game they really got challenged in. They had a slow game against Washington. They start off slow against Michigan, but in those games, they really stepped it up after a slow first quarter. They really got back into what we expected this team to be potentially. And in this game, another slow first quarter, but they never really got back until late in the third quarter where it was already a double digit deficit where it was going to be really tough for them to come back from. And like I mentioned, Miami, to their credit, milked the clock. They didn't have to throw any big passes down the field. Carson Beck was pretty much a game manager in this game, and that's all they needed to do because they had a lot of faith in that defense. They got the job done. So yeah, you could make the case that Ohio State was definitely overhyped. I think a lot of people were expecting them to win the Big Ten championship. They lost that game. They expected them to still win the national championship. They lose their first game, and up until that point, Johnson, the teams that have gotten a bye in the CFP were, what were they, 0 and 5, I think, after that game. And then
Yeah,
our next game that we'll cover, it would be 0 and 6 because Oregon dominates Texas Tech and wins the Orange Bowl to move on to a matchup where they'll get a rematch against a certain team that they played earlier on in the season. But not much really to say about this game. Oregon just showing why that they have a really
Big 12
strong
sucks.
case. I mean, Texas Tech offense was just really bad. They do get Brandon Sorsby in the transfer portal, so maybe that will help them next season. But yeah, Texas Tech was just anemic on offense. They had no signs. Even when they showed signs on offense, they turned the ball over quickly. And yeah, Oregon just dominated them from start to finish.
I really hope that the voters remember this now because with the hype that the Big 12 had between, oh, they can get BYU in, they can get Texas Tech in, they can have a two bid Big 12. Like, they didn't deserve to have one bid. They really didn't deserve to have a single bid. If they just get blown out by the third best team in the Big 10 and they got blown out by them. I mean, remember, going back in a year, I know. At the third best team in the Big 12, or debatably the third best team in the Big 12, Arizona State, got dominated by one of the worst teams in the SEC. And Arizona State, they had games with Texas Tech. They had games with BYU. So the fact that the Big 12, to be honest, I would have given their spot to Tulane. I would have given it to James Madison. They should have gotten the bye. I think they
Yeah, I don't
would have
know
put
about
up a
that.
better fight. I think they would have put up a better fight. Than getting shut out.
I mean, Tulane got pretty much shut out in their game against Ole Miss. I think they scored a garbage time
And Ole Miss
touchdown.
is and Ole Miss is in the it has been rolling though.
No, I get it. I think this game proved that Oregon's defense also should be recognized as one of the top defenses in the country because I get it. Like you might have your criticism of the Big 12, in offense, which is fair. I think after, especially after what we saw in this game. But Oregon is showing that they don't need their offense to be the difference maker because if you remember previous Oregon teams, they needed their offense to be the reason why because their defenses were not really that great. This team seems a little bit more well oiled to the point where they have good playmakers on both sides of the ball, and they could make a strong case to win the national championship. They of course now and obviously do or say the done because they're now one of the final four teams left in the country, but they can win it because they have it. They have the opportunity to do it because of what their defense done in that game, what their offense did in the previous game against James Madison. So they have a really good shot this year.
No, they really do. And I mean, I don't have too much to add
There's
here. We
really
can
not
jump
much you
straight
can
into our
say
next
about this
game.
game, but
And
you really not
I
much you
mean,
can say about this game either.
I
Maybe
mean,
the
there's a
death of
big
Alabama
statement you can
football.
say. Yeah, I mean, let's talk about it because I had said last week or 2 weeks ago that when people used to see that A on Selection Sunday, right, albeit only for a couple of years, they used to have fear in their hearts. Used to see the matchups like, oh, I don't want to play Alabama. I want to avoid Alabama. It used to be all this stuff. People would talk, and now it's like, oh, it's Alabama. So like they've lost that aura about them, that almost edge, that psychological edge that they would have when teams would play them because they would hear on the radio or on ESPN or just in chatter from text messages, just you hear it in the streets and oh, they could, Bama's going to blow them out by 20. They don't stand a chance. So that psychological edge is gone from Alabama, and the aura and mystique is gone. So where do you go now if you're Alabama? Because clearly there's a new top sheriff in town, and right now his name is Kirk Signetti from Indiana.
Yeah, former Nick Saban assistant. Keep in mind too,
Yeah,
so
which
that's
is ironic.
really interesting. Yeah, ironic is the word. Definitely the word for it. Um, I mean, I don't know. Remember how the game started? Bama got a 3-and-out forced to start the game. They sacked Mendoza twice. It looked like they were going to put up a fight, and then the rest of the game happened. Ty Simpson gets injured. Their offense did nothing in this game. They couldn't stop the run. Mendoza only had 2 incompletions and 3 passing touchdowns. And yeah, I don't know where you go from here if you're Alabama. I think Kalen DeBoer right now is in a really uncomfortable spot where you could make the case that he might be on the proverbial hot seat going into this upcoming season because the first 2 years of Bama have just been an absolute nightmare. They didn't make the playoff last year. They make it this year barely, and they got destroyed by 35 points. And they got lucky because they were down 17-0 against Oklahoma. They very well could have been eliminated before this happened had Oklahoma not choked the previous week. So I don't
Yeah, we
know.
thought there was just Alabama coming back to life, but apparently
Yeah,
not.
and keep in mind now they lose Ty Simpson, who announced he's going to the NFL draft today. So they're going to need a quarterback change. So we'll see if they go in the portal, which what I would expect them to probably do. There's a lot of quarterbacks right now in the portal. Um, but yeah, I really don't know where this team goes from here. They have just not looked like as you mentioned, the daunting A on the logo where Nick Saban and company were coming into town, you have to face them. They're a team now that has looked pretty weak. They look very soft right now. They're just getting dominated on both sides of the ball. They can't run the football. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. They are just a shell of what we used to know as this for the past 2 decades.
And if you're the Alabama administration, do you start looking for a head coach? Do you like
I
maybe
think you
put some
start those
feelers
internal
out there?
conversations.
You
I
start
think
internally, right? Because he's on the hot seat clearly,
here's the
but I don't think it's
problem.
enough. I don't think it's a
Yeah,
big enough warrant to fire him yet because
you
he
have to
won a
wait the whole
game.
year.
He won a game, and you have to give him at least one more year because he's got
Yes,
some really talented kids. For example, like Ryan Williams, he took a step back, but I feel like you can get
big
an
step back
upgrade
for
from
him.
Ty Simpson in the portal. I feel like you could really get an upgrade in the portal.
Yeah, I guess it really depends on who's available because I think Sorsby was the number one ranked quarterback in the portal. He already announced his commitment to Texas Tech, as I mentioned earlier on. I don't know really. I'd have to look up what quarterbacks are available in the meantime. But I think the other issue for Bama right now is you mentioned it with Kalen DeBoer, where you can't fire him right now because you're at the end of the year and there's not many options left. All the good options are gone. And the last good option just made a decision a couple weeks ago that we'll talk about later on. I don't really, I think you have to stick it out one more year with him. And if it goes bad again, obviously he's going to get canned and he'll get a job somewhere else, of course, but they have to move on. I think the best opportunity for them at this point, maybe if he doesn't commit to LSU yet, because he's been rumored to potentially go there to play with Lane Kiffin, maybe they try to just persuade a Sam Levitt from Arizona State. Um, I don't think he has committed yet, so I think he's right now the highest ranked quarterback on the portal. You and I, before the show started, talked about Demon Williams Jr. from Washington, who having a crazy situation where he signed a contract to come back to Washington, and now he's deciding, you know what, forget it, I want to go to the portal. So that's a first of its kind. So who knows what's going to happen there? Um, so he could be a guy that maybe the Bama looks at. And meanwhile, while Indiana was winning this game, they even got a big time portal quarterback at Josh Hoover from TCU. So even when Indiana's,
The rich get richer.
focus exactly. They're focused on winning a national championship. The rich get richer, as you pointed out. Mark Cuban, I think, even said that he
He just donated too.
donated. Yeah, he's helping them with the portal, and it's showing out right now. They're getting some of the best players. I think they got a top running back from Boston College, a top wide receiver from Michigan State, and Hoover from TCU, the quarterback. So they might be primed and ready for another trip next season potentially if everything goes well. But yeah, Bama, who knows? I don't know where they go from here. Maybe they just stay in house with their quarterback situation, but it might be wise to maybe look at a quarterback. Hey, maybe Dylan Raiola is maybe someone to look at too. He's available.
No, he's got to tear his ACL and follow the exact Patrick Mahomes arc. He already locked
I
in his story.
I can't tell if I'm getting Sentold Johnson, but I keep seeing him at Syracuse linked up, and I don't know why I'm seeing it.
I couldn't tell you. I haven't heard anything about that.
I've been getting sent so badly. If it's true, then shame on me. Maybe it's something's going on that's crazy enough. But I'm probably getting sent to the point where he's never going to come here. I don't know why. I'm even thinking it's a possibility. Hey, maybe they get DJ Lagway. He's available too.
He is.
He's not going to
You
Florida
want
State
him?
anymore. There was another school that was looking at him. I forgot who it was. Maybe it was Arizona State. I don't remember. It was a Big 12 school. I thought I saw him earlier. But getting off topic, yeah, Indiana wins this game easily. We did, and again, they were and keep in mind, Johnson, they were the first team to win a playoff game after getting the bye because before that, it was 0-6 the teams getting the bye were in the CFP. So they made history by getting this victory, but that history would stay with them only because our final game of the quarterfinal matchup was the thriller between Ole Miss and Georgia. Ole Miss winning the game 39-34. We saw a great season from Trinidad Chambliss for the majority of the year. He really stood out in this game to me a lot. Him and Gunnar Stockton were trading punches back and forth, and they were both taking a lot of heavy hits from both sides of the defense. But some of the throws that they were making in this game were so incredible to watch. It was by far the best game we've had all postseason so far in the CFP. Um, and it's a game that I felt like college football needed, considering the fact of how those games were going, because it felt like by halftime, every single game was already done. This game, you knew was, despite a 9-point deficit for Ole Miss at the half, they showed fight in this game. They don't have their head coach right now. They might not have a lot more coaches going into the semifinal matchup with Miami, but they are putting on one of the more unreal stories of this college football season.
Yeah, Trinidad Chambliss goes from D2 quarterback to college football legend in under 6 months. So it's crazy how this sport operates. And he's used up all his eligibility, but if it's granted because they've done some weird things because he's a D2 guy, he transferred, he hasn't had
Yes.
a couple years at Division 1 level, they might just give it to him, especially if
Yeah,
he's
if you
going to
get
bring
that
in
sixth
ratings
year.
like this. Yeah, if they give him that 6 year, he's already worked out a deal with Ole Miss, and you're probably wondering that Lane Kiffin's kicking himself because he's not going to follow him there.
Yeah, that's why they pivoted in Sam Levitt. That's 100% for the reason why they did this, because they're not going to be able to get him.
Yeah, so it is a little crazy that we do see this, but if he's there next year, they're going to be competitive.
100%.
So he had an absolute amazing game, and it's one of the best stories in college football right now.
Yeah, we're gonna break down the matchups later on the show for the semifinal. But I love what this CFP has brought to us this season because you're gonna either get a first-time national champion, which is either Indiana or Oregon. They're gonna win. One of those teams is gonna be in the championship game regardless. Miami is the only team I believe that out of the four that has a national championship because I think Ole Miss's national championships are technically claimed. They haven't won an outright national championship. So I won't count that because I don't know how I really don't like when teams claim national championships where they don't really play for it. Um, so technically three teams are looking for their first national championship outright. One team in Miami looking for their first national championship since 2001. So there's a lot of great storylines going into the CFP. I think, you know, Miami trying to restore its glory to the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. Indiana trying to pull off one of the craziest turnarounds in college football, maybe even professional sports history. Um, you have Oregon, that's been pretty much out of the four the most consistent team over the past couple of decades, and they're looking for their first championship in their program's history. And then Ole Miss, I mean, what's more you could say? They lose their head coach, they lose pretty much half of their staff, and despite all that, they are one win away from playing for a national championship. It's just a crazy, crazy season we were having. So before we break those matchups down, Johnson, we did have one coach news that did happen during the break for us, and that was just I think about 2 days after Christmas, maybe a day after Christmas. This was announced. I don't remember the exact date, but Kyle Whittingham, the former head coach of Utah, remember he resigned after coaching the Utes for 21 seasons. So it looked like maybe he was going to be done coaching in general, but looking at it after what happened, he just wanted a new opportunity. And for him, that new opportunity popped up after the whole Michigan scandal went down with Sherrod Moore. He is now the new head coach of the Michigan Wolverines. So very interesting to see what's going to happen this season. I think Whittingham, for Michigan's sake, hopefully can install something that can bring Michigan back to glory and install that big time rivalry. Keep that rivalry going with Ohio State for years and years to come. But a very good hire for Michigan because, as I think you and I both said it when it first happened, despite the fact of how everything went down with Sharon Moore, for Michigan to get a hire like this late in the season with pretty much every single coaching option done, this was an absolute home run hire for this Michigan team.
Yeah, he's an experienced head coach, and it's going to be really interesting. I don't know how exactly we're going to do this, but if I had to think about this, and if I was the AD of Michigan, right? Like they, it's hard to say because it's kind of a low blow, right? Because you knew about the incident, you kept them late in the game, so they couldn't really transfer out, and then you steal Utah's head coach. He's been there for 2 decades. It's a good pedigree, and I don't know I don't know how to feel about this because they usually hold themselves to a higher standard, and this seems
You
like they
think
went the low
Michigan
road.
did something
I think
shady
that
to get him to get there?
no, I'm just saying what they shielded their team pretty much. They prevented the guys there from decommitting it because they broke it after National Signing Day when they knew beforehand.
No,
So
listen, there's no denying that was shady.
so
Is
that's why I'm
it's
saying they
whatever.
kind of went the
Yeah.
low road on this one because you think he would come here from Utah if he didn't have that class? He wouldn't. He would not.
I think it's weird because all signs from him, for what I've seen in interviews, is that he was just pretty much done with what was going on in Utah, and I understood where he was coming from because I think you and I have seen this over the course of so many collegiate sports, even professional sports. When you're there for like over a decade, even in his case, over 2 decades, you don't want to end that tenure on a bad, sour note where like the team starts getting bad, you start ruining your reputation at that school. He at least goes out on a high note because they were what, the 13th ranked team, 14th ranked team in the country to end the season. So he goes out on a high note with how he was at Utah. He restored them after, remember, they lost Urban Meyer to, at that point in time, to Florida when he left Utah to go to coach the Gators and win national championships. He was the guy that restored everything at the Utes and kept them in the national spotlight. And that's what I think he's trying to do with Michigan. I think right now they're in a weird point in time, despite winning the championship 2 years ago. Maybe if of course, there's scandals and all speculations for that happening. But Michigan wants to be a consistent battle, a battle team, a team that can battle with a lot of these top schools in the Big Ten. The Indianas now, the Oregons, the Ohio States, of course. They want to keep pace with those teams. And one way to do that is that they need a head coach that's going to install a willpower of intensity because they lost that in Jim Harbaugh 2 years ago. Whittingham could definitely make sure that Michigan gets back on track.
Yeah, that's all I really have to say. So, Nick, want to go
Let's go to
break
the
down
mushing
those
hour.
games? Yeah, let's
Yeah, let's
do it.
do it. Which one do we want to start off? We want to start off with the Fiesta Bowl.
Oh, let's go with the Fiesta Bowl, Nick.
Might as well consider that game as tomorrow. We might as well start off with that game. So I'll kick it off with the Fiesta Bowl tomorrow night in Phoenix, Arizona. It is number 10 Miami, number 6 Ole Miss. It is the Miami Hurricanes, a 3.5 point favorite in this game. 52.5 is the over/under.
I'm going Old Miss plus for here. I think it's disrespectful. Trinidad Chambliss is going to put on a show, and Miami, the Cinderella run might end here. So
I meant to say Miami -3, not -3.5. I apologize for that. I don't know what it is. I would love to see, listen. I would love to see Ole Miss win this game because I'm kind of laughing at how Lane Kiffin left to go coach and try to win a national championship at LSU
by the
when
way, LSU is paying his bonuses every time Old Miss wins.
I know he was at the game. He was rooting on Ole Miss in this their last game in New Orleans, so it makes sense. But I think that's maybe the reason why I kind of want Miami to win this game so that he doesn't keep getting paid for this. Um, and I also kind of watch. I always I watch those Miami documentaries on ESPN where they were breaking down like some of the best players from the 80s and 90s, and I would kind of like to see them get back. to the old nostalgia of Miami football. I'll go with the Canes -3 in this game. I just think the defense is going to be a very interesting dynamic against this Ole Miss team that's firing on all cylinders right now on the offensive side. But I think Miami is going to do just enough to win this game and hold on. I would expect Carson Beck to know a little bit scheming wise on how to play this Ole Miss team, considering his time from Georgia. So I'll give the Canes the slight advantage in this matchup just because of their defense going up against this Ole Miss offense. So give me Miami -3 in that matchup in on Thursday. And then Johnson, what's our game on Friday? The Peach Bowl.
We have number 5 Oregon versus number 1 Indiana. Indiana is a 3.5 point favorite over under slate at 48.5. And just give me Indiana -3.5. Not that much of an explanation needed here. I think they have a better team, and Kirk's going to keep on rolling. I think we get two. Just like everyone, I think my national champion at this point, it's just how everyone drew it up, is Ole Miss Miami.
I mean, Ole Miss
Just like
Indiana.
everyone, Ole Miss. I'm sorry, Ole Miss Indiana. Excuse me.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, of course, we all expected that at the beginning of the season, right?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
Of course. Why? Who
yeah, of
wouldn't? You'd
course,
have to be a fool.
of course, of course. Uh, I'll go Indiana. I can't really. I would like Oregon would be interesting to see if they can pull this off because I feel like if they do pull it off, then I think they do go all the way and win the national championship. But I just think Indiana is on a different level right now. I think Kurt Signe said it after the game against Alabama. This has been pretty much a movie script type of last 2 years that they've had here at Indiana, and a great way to end this quote unquote script is to win the national championship. I think this team has all the capabilities of doing it right now. The way they're playing, they have really not been they just dominate on both sides of the ball. It's really impressive what they do. And they already beat this Oregon team, keep in mind, earlier on in the season. They went into Eugene and beat them by 10 points. That was the turning point of their season because we didn't know if they were a good team or not at that point. They proved it on that game. I just think that they're, as you mentioned, a better team than the Ducks. So Indiana -3.5 is my pick as well in the Peach Bowl to round out the second to last mushing hour, Johnson, of this college football season.
Hard to believe it's almost over.
Yeah, I
Feels
know,
like we
right?
just started.
I know, right? But for us, it's not over here tonight on the show. As we mentioned earlier on, it is a super show for us this week. So let's break down, Johnson, what happened in week 18 in the National Football League. It all started on Saturday with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beating the Carolina Panthers 16-14. But if you remember last week, I mentioned that there was two scenarios for the Buccaneers to win the division. They had to win and get help from the New Orleans Saints. But because the Falcons defeated the New Orleans Saints this past Sunday, that allowed the Carolina Panthers to clinch the NFC South for the first time since 2015. If you remember, that was the year they went to the Super Bowl that season. So Tampa Bay wins the game, but Carolina is going to the playoffs.
Very sad for the Buccaneers fans. Even sadder for the Falcons fans because they were the best team in the
They
in the
just
AFC
beat the
South.
Jets. They're in the playoffs.
I know. If they were in the last month of the season, this was the team to beat in the AFC South. It was the
NFC
Falcons.
South,
You know,
yeah.
NFC South. Excuse me. I don't know why I said
That's,
AFC.
yeah, it's okay.
AFC South is Jacksonville. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
But they're the team to beat. And if you think about it, Nick, they had so many one-score games, including against my Patriots. This could easily be an 11 or 12 win football team.
And remember how that game they lost that game? Missed extra point.
Yeah, and absolutely. This is a team that was a lot more talented. This is probably the most talented 8-9 team we've seen in a while.
Yeah, Atlanta just a weird season. And as I mentioned, if they just beat the Jets when they were at MetLife a couple of weeks ago, they're in the playoffs, a 9-8. They'd be the only 9-win team in the division. They'd be the only 500
They
team
flipped one
in
of
the division.
their
Right.
of their one-score games, and even picked like 4 of them.
Right.
They're in
You
the
could pick any of
playoffs.
those games. Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, Carolina gets the benefit of the doubt because of that. They win the division off of the tiebreaker, and now they get to go to the postseason. Well, we don't know how far they're going to go, but I think it's the first time since the Buccaneers a couple years ago with Tom Brady in his final year that a under 500 team clinches a division and a playoff spot. So, congrats, Carolina. You lose, but at the end of the day, you win.
5 one-score games, by the way.
Yeah, that's
That 23-20 against the Buccaneers. These are the games they lost. 23-20 against the Buccaneers. So that's a one-score game. 24-23 versus the Patriots. 31-25 versus the Colts. 30-27 versus the Falcons. And 27-24 against the Jets. So
And
five
keep him.
one-score
Yep, go ahead.
games.
Sorry. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was gonna
five
say.
one-score games.
I was only gonna say that. Keep in mind also for Tampa Bay, this was an absolute cataclysmic collapse that they had to end the season. And remember that loss to Atlanta is the reason why this happened because they were a stop away from winning that game. They had a third and I think 28 in that game. They allowed it to be like 4th and 11, and then on 4th and 11, they gave up the first down. They win that game. They, of course, win the division. There's not even a conversation about it. But they lose that game. They lose to the Saints. They lose to the Panthers the 2 weeks prior. They lose to the Dolphins, who were playing Quinn Ewers. I know how much of a fan you are of him. But after a great start to the year, they were 5-1 to start the season, and they finished the year 8-9.
Yeah, absolute tragedy. And Todd Bowles still has his job as of this
He still has a
recording. And
shot for now, but
he's
yeah,
safe in Black Monday, so
yeah, he's got one more year left in him. I'm telling you right now, he's not going to get away with that next season. They have to bounce back because you're not going to do that twice in a row. So we'll see. Now, speaking of twice in a row, Johnson, Sam Darnold was trying to avoid losing 2 straight years of having an opportunity to get the number 1 seed and a division title for his respective team as the Seattle Seahawks went into Santa Clara to take on the San Francisco 49ers. The winner of that game getting the number 1 seed and the NFC West title. And the Seahawks, man, they are an absolute dangerous team defensively, especially when they're playing on the road. The Niners had no offense going for them in this game. They only scored 3 points. They had Brock Purdy pretty much in purgatory, just really struggling to do anything offensively. Christian McCaffrey really wasn't a difference maker in this game either. 13-3 was the final. The Seahawks get the win. They are going to the playoffs as the number 1 seed. They have home field advantage, as well as the NFC West title. So the NFC playoffs runs through Seattle, and now the Niners will have to go on the road for Wildcard weekend.
yeah, it's really a shame because they'll be going into a very hostile environment, very far away from home. If that's a spoiler alert for anyone, but Seahawks get it done, and Sam Darnold becomes the only quarterback besides Tom Brady to have back-to-back 14-win seasons.
Yes. You know what's funny? I was actually looking for that stat, and I just found it as you said that. So
There
yeah,
you go.
yeah, yeah. It's been impressive what Darnold's been doing. He didn't have to do much in this game, but
What a
yes,
resurgence, by the way.
yeah,
A
yeah,
guy that everyone had written off.
yeah. I listen. This was a team that at the beginning of the season, I think you and I mean,
He was
probably
seeing
a lot of
ghosts
people.
7 years ago. He was seeing ghosts,
Yeah,
and he had mono, right? He's
yeah,
battling mono 7 years
yeah.
ago, and now all of a sudden he's in entering the prime of his career for a quarterback. He just turned 28 years old not too long
He's
ago.
proving why that contract Seattle gave to him in the offseason was well worth it because remember how the season ended for him last year, that game with Minnesota, and then they got beat up in the playoffs the week after. And then he comes out this season. You mentioned the 14 wins, really had some big numbers this season with Jackson Smith and Jigba. And now, this is a team that, as I was talking about earlier, going into the season, was probably viewed as the third best team in their own division
Yeah,
behind LA and San Francisco. And now they're the best team in the NFC. You could make the case they're probably the team to beat right now in terms of Super Bowl odds. I think they are the odds on favor right now to go on and win the Super Bowl
he is.
at this point in time. So yeah,
No, he is.
it's been an incredible season for this Seattle team, and shout out to their to what they've been doing this entire season. They showed signs of it last year, didn't really do much with it with Geno Smith at the helm, but they're doing a great job this season all around.
Yeah, and here we go now. Let's go on to our next game, Nick. And I think we don't have much to go over in this
There
game,
wasn't
but
much, and the only reason that happened because Sunday there wasn't really much clincher scenarios outside of I think the Bears and the Eagles were fighting for the 2 seed. The Broncos, of course, got the 1 seed because the Chargers weren't playing anyone. The Bears and the Eagles both lost this past weekend, so there was no movement on that positioning. The Rams, they beat the Cardinals, and with the Niners loss, that put the Rams ahead of the Niners in terms of wild card and standings. So there wasn't much noteworthy stuff on Sunday. The biggest note from Sunday was what happened on Sunday Night Football to round out the regular season. And we had an all-time classic in the AFC North that brought back some old, vibes from this Ravens and Steelers rivalry we've seen over the past 2 decades from these two ball clubs. Back and forth action. The offenses this time around, we would see the defenses shine in these matchups, but it was the offenses that were shining in this matchup between these two teams. Lamar Jackson making some incredible throws to Zay Flowers. Aaron Rodgers, despite not having DK Metcalf, getting the ball down the field to guys like Calvin Austin, Adam Thielen, Scotty Miller, Pat Fryermuth, um, just to name a few players. And the Steelers, they get a late touchdown in the fourth quarter with about 50 seconds left. Chris Boswell's kick, I believe, was blocked. Looking further at the replay of that, it looked like he missed it initially, but I think it was tipped as he kicked it up. Regardless, it was a missed extra point. So the Steelers had a 2-point lead with under a minute to go. Baltimore at that point going down the field. They convert a long fourth down play to Isaiah Likely to set them up into field goal range. And Johnson, unfortunately for Baltimore, Tyler Loop, their rookie kicker, misses a 44-yard kick. The Ravens, because of it, lose by 2, 26-22 for the final. Steelers get the win. They're going to the playoffs as the AFC North champions, and the Ravens now go home. And we, of course, know now they have a lot of decisions to make this offseason.
A ton of decisions. And would you say this win was divine intervention, Nick? Because I sure believe in that.
Are
Because
you
at the
are
beginning
you
of the
saying?
game,
Go
not
ahead.
only did the priest bless the field,
Yep.
he missed the field goal on the side that the
On the
blessing
exact same
happened.
side. Yep.
So divine intervention, weird coincidence, whatever you want to call it. If that priest might have just saved Mike Tomlin's job and the Steelers season.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. We said last week the loser of that game probably doesn't coach next season, and judging by what happened yesterday, that was indeed the case. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about this game before we go into that those news?
I think this gave Aaron Rodgers confidence to come back for one more season, be it with the Steelers. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that's going to be interesting to see if he comes back. I think they probably run it back just because I don't know what other options they're going to really do. They're not going to have a high draft pick, and I don't really know big time quarterbacks in the free agency period that's coming up. It might be Malik Willis. I think that might be the best quarterback that's available. So I'm not sure if they really want to go that route. But he showed signs this year of being good. But yeah, I think the biggest news for the Steelers is that they win this game. Now they get DK Metcalf back for the playoffs. So who knows what happens? Maybe they go on one more magical run for Rodgers at the tail end of his career. Um, but because of that loss, Johnson for Baltimore, it led to a change at the head coaching position. After 18 years at the position, John Harbaugh was fired by Baltimore. So the Ravens, for the first time in a long time, will have to find a new head coach. And John Harbaugh, despite getting fired, will be a very hot commodity in this coaching cycle.
Hot commodity is an understatement, Nick. He has 7 teams contacting him, and there's 7 open positions. And the Ravens aren't contacting him. So there's someone out there, or
There,
there's some team
the
out there that
rumor,
has an
the rumor I've
incumbent
heard
head
is
coach,
Miami.
and they're like, "Yeah, I'd believe it." There's an incumbent head coach out there, and he's like, "Hey, we're okay for our guy, but if you want to come here, we're gonna fire him." So
Yeah,
that's crazy to me.
and it's just a weird way this relationship ended for Harbaugh and the Ravens because from what I heard yesterday from Ian Rappaport when he was talking about this, it was the fact that Harbaugh wanted to keep a lot of his current staff on the coaching staff for next season. So that's already a problem itself as it is because the Ravens defense was really bad this season. Their offense was at times really good, but also at times really bad. So they needed some coaching changes regardless on the staff. And then he pretty much lost the locker room. Him and Lamar Jackson were butting heads. So it comes down to do you want to, if you're an ownership, do you want to keep your star quarterback or your long tenured head coach? You always go with the star quarterback at that end of the day. So Lamar and company will have a new head coach and coaching staff going into next season. And as we mentioned, Harbaugh now will see which one of those 7 teams hires him in the next couple of weeks. It shouldn't be too long. I feel like for him to get another head coaching job. And the same could be said for Kevin Stefanski from the Cleveland Browns. They fired him as well this past Monday. A former two-time coach of the year. He will definitely get a head coaching job as soon as possible because of course, obviously getting the Browns their first playoff win in a long time. So he'll be a guy that'll be looked at this upcoming coaching cycle too. Um, we saw the Falcons. You know, you talked about them earlier on with how they ended the season, a really strong note, but it wasn't enough to keep head coach Raheem Morris and GM Terry Fontenot. They both get fired on, I believe it was Sunday night. I think going into that Sunday night game, they got fired going into that. So they both get fired. And it was tough because Raheem already had a bad reputation from his time at Tampa Bay. And had they not lost those one score games during the regular season, they probably both keep their jobs going into next season. But I think the problem for what Terry Fontenot was, their GM, I think a lot, you look at some of the first round picks he made, they were pretty good. Some of them were a lot of good first round picks. You know, Kyle Pitts had a more than solid season this year, probably better than his previous, 4 years. Drake London has established himself as a great wide receiver. Bijan Robinson is a top three back in the NFL. The last two of the last three were kind of questionable. Michael Penix, probably the most questionable out of them all because of them signing Kirk Cousins, and then they immediately drafted him that same exact offseason. Jalen Walker's had an up and down start to his career. And James Pierce, at least, has shown flashes this season of being a top defensive end. But if you remember, Johnson, they had to trade their own first round pick in this draft upcoming to get James Pierce. So the Rams have themselves a top 16 pick because of that trade. So that's probably the reason why they made the move at GM. But I know you weren't happy about Raheem Morris getting fired in this cycle.
No, I feel like he really was turning it around towards the end of the season. I think, you know, management pretty much forced him to play Michael Penix. What is he going to do? What are they going to do? Draft him and say, okay, I'm just going to sit him? Like,
Yeah, I
it
remember.
really
You
wasn't his
remember
fault.
Cousins was up and down in that first year. So at the tail end, the last three games, they played Penix to see what he was.
Yeah, so I'm not going to really pin this 100% on him because he was going to start when you draft a quarterback like that in year two, no matter what. So I'm not going to give it 100% him 100% blame. He deserves some of it, but it's definitely not him. It's definitely the GM too. It's the GM and ownership too.
And we had two other head coach firings after that. Cardinals fired Jonathan Gannon. I mean, that was going to happen at some point because the
He
Cardinals have
deserved
just
it.
been,
He definitely
yeah,
deserved
the
it.
Cardinals have just been a travesty. Did you know that they only have, I think, what was it, 7 playoff wins as a franchise, right? They've been around for like over 100 years. And
Yeah,
like
that sounds about
John,
right.
like a head coach like John Fox or like any other coach you can think of, maybe obviously the good ones, but a head coach like John Fox has more playoff wins as a coach than the Cardinals have as a franchise. They're just a joke right now, unfortunately. Um, we don't know if Kyler Murray is coming back this offseason. I would tend to think probably not. Um, so they will need a new head coach, probably a new quarterback. They need a whole overhaul in Arizona. And probably the same thing is happening in Vegas too, because after 1 year coming back after taking a year off to not be the Seahawks head coach, the Raiders firing Pete Carroll. Um, they do win on Sunday. They still get the number one pick in the NFL draft after what the Giants did to the Cowboys. So for any head coach that's going to the Raiders, they're going to get the number one overall pick. I think $100 million in cap space, but a lot of holes to fill on a roster that is really not great right now on paper. And they might trade Max Crosby away, considering he's been disgruntled with the team the last couple seasons.
I would love to see Max Crosby over in New England too. And can we talk about Geno Smith though? Like I had said that, hey,
Yeah,
it's probably it for Geno. Like he's
yeah.
good. Like I don't think he was gonna be good this year. And hey, you had a great late career resurgence. You had four really solid seasons, or I should say, three and a quarter solid seasons with the Seahawks because I discovered you late in that year. I think it was 2021. And then the last three seasons, he's been really good, solid Pro Bowl quarterback. And that was kind of it for him. I said, I
Yeah,
don't know how
remember,
much longer
everyone
he
was
had it.
shocked that the Seahawks traded him this past offseason
And I
to
said, I
Vegas.
didn't know how much time he had left in the tank. Like, he's a 35-year-old quarterback now. And, Brady, Rogers, they're not the standard. They are the exception. So 35-year-old quarterback. Yeah, it's kind of normal for him to take a downturn in production. Almost
Yeah.
every quarterback that's been this old in the history of the NFL has taken a downturn in production once they
He's
hit
gonna be a
35.
free agent this offseason. He'll probably be a backup for someone next season that's got maybe like a young quarterback,
He'll be
for
a great
sure.
mentor. He'll be a great mentor. He got paid. He wasn't a bust. Now he had a solid career. If you said that, okay, you drafted a second round quarterback, early second round, and he was a 2-time Pro Bowler in like
Yeah,
10 years, I'm like, all right, that's solid. Like, he had a good career.
yeah, yeah. Um, Normally when we have these head coaching firings, I tend to ask like people, what's the best job available? I think both you and I obviously agree it's Baltimore. Going to an opportunity to coach a team that has, a not Super Bowl, but contender, but well, I guess you could say maybe they are. But you have an MVP, a former MVP quarterback, in Lamar Jackson. I feel like that's probably the most coveted job right now, going right now, at this current
And
point.
it's historic, and you have the fan base too.
Out of the other six jobs, let me ask you that: what's the second best job? You have the Raiders, the Titans, the Cardinals, the Falcons, the Browns, and the Giants.
I
If you
mean,
were a head coach, which one you
they're
want to
all
go?
kind of the same.
You think they're all
Every
kind of the
single
same?
it depends on what you want, because they're all franchises that in this decade are not used to winning. However, what I will say is you're going to be expected to win New York when you come day one.
Hmm.
When you come to New York, it's you day one expectations. Cleveland bars is in the floor, right? It's on the floor. It's below the floor. It's in the basement. Tennessee, they're used to it. The Raiders are used to it. Cardinals have a rich tradition that they have fallen off the last couple of years. I would say the Cardinals' job would be interesting too, but they don't really have the offensive weapons.
They
I
just,
mean,
I
Marvin
don't know what they
Harrison
are.
Jr. can't stay healthy. You
Yeah,
have an
they,
emergent wide receiver one in Michael Wilson, but
yeah.
is that just a one hit wonder
Trey
type of thing?
McBride, of
We don't know.
course,
You have Trey
unbelievable.
McBride. I would say the Giants only because you have one of the best pass rushers in the game. You have an established starting quarterback. You have a good running back. You're gonna have a great wide receiver,
And you get a
and
top five pick with the pick.
you have a top 5 pick when you come in there. So, like, if I was anyone, and this is not my New York bias, I probably want to go to the Giants because yes, it's going to have the most pressure out of all these jobs, but the roster is set up for if you get a top offensive lineman for Jackson Dart. Let's say you take the kid from Utah or Miami, one of those guys
Yeah, if they go
could be
offensive
set up
line,
here.
yeah,
I mean, they should go offensive line. There's no doubt
they
in my
should.
mind. Those
I,
both
I
those
have,
guys, I'm telling you right now, from Spencer and Francis, the guys from
yeah.
Utah and Miami, they are both generational offensive linemen. You better
I'm
take
not
one of them.
denying that. My theory is that because Joe Shane's already on the hot seat, he's going to try and make a flashy pick to save his job. So he might go the route of getting a wide receiver like Carnell Tate or someone like that.
That'd be one of the
I
dumbest
agree with
things
you.
ever. But
I mean, I here's what I'll say: this, it wouldn't be a mistake to get another wide receiver because the Giants need another wide receiver.
sign a wide
Neighbor
receiver though. You need a wide
Neighbors is
receiver
good.
too. You need an
Rob
established wide receiver too.
Right. What Robinson's been fine, but he's not a wide receiver too. He's a slot receiver. And I want them to cut Darius Slayton as soon as possible. He's been so bad. He drops every single pass possible. So they need to establish number two wide receiver. Now, do you go that route in the first round? I don't know. Maybe what they do is maybe they trade the fifth pick, try to move down and try to get a receiver and an offensive lineman like that, as you mentioned. So maybe
I
they
mean,
do
I'll be
that.
real with you. I think you get Casey Concepcion if you want to trade
Could get him in
into
the
the
second round,
early.
yeah.
He's either gonna be a late first rounder or he's gonna be a
Early
late
second
first
round pick,
rounder, or
yeah.
early second rounder. And to be honest with you, I don't see him being worse than any of the other top wide receivers. I
I've
mean,
seen
Jordan
him
Tyson
mocked.
played in the Big 12, and Carnell Tate is really better than Concepcion. Like,
Cardinal Tate
really, like he's
is
big, he has the
good.
physicals. I know that, but like we're not talking about
Concepcion has
quarterback here. We're
drop
playing
issues,
about
which is the problem.
you could fix that though.
You can
You could
fix that,
fix
yeah.
that.
That absolutely can. I mean, look at Jamar Chase. He had the same case when he came out of college. He had drop issues, and everyone was worried about that. And he's obviously a top five receiver in the NFL. Um, Outside of my bias, I mean, it's probably the Giants' second best option. But I think I liked what you were saying about Atlanta too earlier. They're starting to finally get a little bit of an identity on the defensive side, and you have the playmakers on the offensive front with London and Bijan. Kyle Pitts is a free agent, so keep that in mind. Will they bring them back? I don't know. And the Browns are also interesting. I feel like just because they have a good defense on paper. the offense is just a crapshoot right now. You need to figure out, is Gabriel or Sanders your starting quarterback? You have Quinshawn Judkins when he comes back from injury at running back, but you need wide receivers. You cannot roll Jerry Jeudy as your number one guy next season, so they need to figure that out. And the short emergence from Harold Fannin at tight end, so they those are very interesting. I feel like the Cardinals and the Raiders are not as interesting as you would think, because even though the Raiders have the number one pick, it's just they're just in a world of mess right now. And you might be the guy that, drafts Mendoza or whatever you want to do at number one, but you might not be the guy down the line that is the coach for Mendoza, because you might get fired in a year or two. Because look what happened with the Titans. That's what's happening right now with Cam Ward. Like, they were thinking that Brian Callahan was going to be the guy to coach him, and he got fired, 4 games into the season? So
Yep.
that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's probably, I wouldn't want to be the coach of Arizona or Vegas, probably not even Tennessee, but um, the Browns, the Giants, and Falcons, outside of Baltimore, of course, they provide you with some intrigue to where you might consider it, and then go from there. But Stefanski and Harbaugh, of course, are the top two names, I feel like, on the cycle at this point because of what they've done in previous years. So if you're any of those teams, and even if you're a team like Miami, who still has their head coach, you're trying to dial in and try to get one of those guys to coach you next season. So we'll see.
And that
Any
being said, Nick, let's go into Wildcard Weekend Mushing Hour, and I'm going to start us off. We
Yes,
got
sir.
Rams versus Panthers, Saturday Night Football. Rams are a 10.5 point favorite on the road. Crazy to say that, especially during the playoffs, and the over-under is 46.5. I'm
Yeah.
taking Panthers to cover. I think that's way too many points. It's disrespectful.
And keep in mind, the Panthers beat the Rams earlier in the season. This is one of the reasons why the Panthers are in the playoffs. Um, I don't know. Call me silly. I'm gonna go with the Rams minus 10.5. I agree with you. It's a lot of points, but the Rams, I feel like, have to get that, the stench of way of what happened earlier in the season between these two teams. I think they get the job done. Carolina was a good story that they're in the playoffs, but I just don't know how much of a challenge they bring to the Rams in this matchup on Saturday afternoon. So I'll take the Rams minus 10.5 in that game. On Saturday night, Johnson, big matchup in the NFC. It is the NFC North rivalry, probably the longest tenured rivalry in all of the National Football League. Packers at the Bears. Packers a 1.5 point road favorite, 45.5 the over under.
Give me Packers minus 1.5 here. I'm not going to overthink this.
Call me crazy. I'm going to go with the Bears plus 1.5. They got lucky to even beat the Packers earlier in the season after that onside kick. I don't know. I think the Packers are just limping into the playoffs. That's my problem with them right now. They have a lot of injuries. Jordan Love is probably gonna be healthy for this game. After getting the concussion when they played the last time these two teams played. But I don't know. I just feel like the Packers have so many injuries to overcome that it's gonna be too much for them in this matchup. So I'll take Chicago to get some revenge from previous playoff endeavors against Green Bay, and I have them to move on to the divisional round. Then what we have on Sunday? What's our first game?
We got a big game on Sunday. We have Bills versus Jags. Bills on the road, 1.5 point favorite. 52.5 is the slated over under. Jags to cover plus 1.5, but not to win.
All right, Johnson. I got a spoiler for this game.
Sure.
The winner of this game, in my opinion, is going to the Super Bowl. I'm that confident, I feel like, with these two
Okay.
teams.
Okay.
I love what Jacksonville has been doing the last, 2 months of the season. They have been on an absolute tear. They're beating teams like Denver on the road by double digits. They're Trevor Lawrence has looked like an absolute beast. The guy that we expected. We said it last week. He's looked like the guy we expected out of college right now. And I think everything's going right for them. Their defense is looking great. Their offense is firing on all cylinders. But I think I'm going to pick Buffalo to win the game, but I would not be shocked if Jacksonville wins and goes on to the Super Bowl if that happens. I'll take the Bills minus 1.5. I'm going to trust Josh Allen and company to get the job done. And you and I probably both agree on this too. I know your Patriots are in it, but this has to be the year Josh Allen has to get them to the Super Bowl, because there's no Mahomes, there is no Burrow, there is no Lamar Jackson. If there was ever a year for Josh Allen to get to the Super Bowl, it's got to be this season. Tough matchup for him to start the playoffs. I'll take them to win this game, but I really feel confident that the winner of this matchup goes to the Super Bowl. Represents the AFC.
Yeah, no comment. The only comment I will have is, though, that in the history of the NFL, there's never been a coach quarterback duo that have been together for 5 years or more. If they have not won a Super Bowl previously, so that means in years one, two, three, four, or five, they have never won a Super Bowl. So, for example, Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor have
Zach
been together
Elliott,
for more than 5 years. Their windows closed. Jared Goff and Dan Campbell, windows closed. And Josh Allen and our friend here,
Sean McDermott.
five. They've already been here for 5 years, so I don't think they'll win the Super Bowl. But hey, they need to break history for it to happen. So
Yeah, yeah. I feel like this to me. I feel like this is the game of the wild card week. I really feel like this
they
is going
need
to
to
be
make
the
the
game to
Super
watch.
Bowl. There's no excuses. They need to make the Super Bowl.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. Listen, Buffalo had an up and down season. Um, of course, this was the last year at their homes at Highmark Stadium, so now they're moving in to the new Highmark Stadium next season. If you can go into the new stadium with a banner, that'd be great. But if, as you mentioned, if there was ever a time, this has to be the year for them to do it. So we'll see. But a tough matchup, great matchup between them and Jacksonville on Sunday. Second game on Sunday, we have 49ers at the Eagles. Is Eagles minus 5.5, 44.5 the over under.
Give me 49ers plus 5.5. I think they're going to cover this and they might even win.
Yeah, I mean, I really wanted to pick the Eagles just to do what you've done all year with the Chiefs and just say, you know what, let me pick them. If I get the win, I get the win. If I don't, then oh well, the Eagles are out of the playoffs. I do think the Niners can go on the road and win this game. And the reason is they might get Fred Warner back. That would be a huge get for them on the defensive side. Um, but I feel like, remember what happened a couple years ago in the NFC Championship game where Brock Purdy got hurt, Josh Johnson, their backup, got hurt. They had to play Christian McCaffrey at quarterback for a couple plays. Like, it was an absolute disaster what happened the last time these two teams played in the postseason. I think the Niners keep this game close. 5.5, I feel like it's a lot of points. I think this is a field goal game. And I agree with you. I think San Francisco will go on the road and win this matchup, considering the Eagles weren't that great this season all around. But this Eagles team is a team that could win this game and could very well go to the Super Bowl still, despite an up and down season. So I'll go San Francisco plus 5.5 in that matchup. And then Johnson, I know you're looking forward to this one. What do we got on Sunday night?
We have Chargers at Patriots. The Patriots are at home and they are a 3.5 point favorite, and the over under slated at 46.5. I'm taking Pats minus 3.5.
Can I get your thoughts on this game and how are you nervous about this matchup? Of course, I know it's postseason, but
No,
how
I
nervous are
want
you in this
vengeance
matchup?
because they tanked the game when they easily could have beat the Broncos and the Patriots could have been on bye. So I think they're going to come out with a fire and they're going to win.
Okay. And in terms of the Patriots in general for the playoffs, how do you feel about them in terms of the rest of the
I think they'll
AFC?
make the AFC Championship game. I think that's about it, though.
Okay. Okay. I won't spoil it any more than that. I've got Chargers plus 3.5 in this game. I think this is a close game between these two teams. This might also be a last second field goal that gets the job done. I just think because of them resting the starters for a week, I think that's going to help the Chargers. They'll be a little bit more healthy. They desperately need it because that offensive line has been so brutal for Justin Herbert that he needed a week off to at least get ready for a matchup like this. You have Hampton as well, running back that he got healthy at the end of the season. You have solid wide receivers and Quentin Johnston, Lamb McConkey, Keenan Allen. Um, Chargers have the capability of making this a game with New England. I do think they cover. I don't know who wins the game though. I think this is really going to be close. It's going to have you sweating. I feel
It's
like
definitely
on
going to be
Sunday night.
close. I'm not going to deny that.
So I'll go with Chargers plus 3.5. Um, going to be a great way to end the Sunday slate. And then Johnson, it all concludes on Monday Night Football. It's Texans at the Steelers. Texans a 3-point favorite on the road, 39.5 the over under. The Steelers, remember, if I'm not mistaken, I think they've won their last 23 Monday Night Football games in a row.
Not since the 1990s. I think 1992. They have not lost a Monday Night Football game.
So does
So
the streak continue?
it continues. Steelers plus 3.
See, I think the streak's over because I think this is a Texans team that's so good that they can end a streak like that. Um, Two good defenses. I just think the Texans defense is a lot more better at this point. I should say a lot more better, a lot better than the Steelers defense at this point. I think it comes down to is CJ Stroud going to step up and make the plays in the set, that are necessary to get the Texans to win. I feel like that is the case. I don't know if there's a guy on the Steelers that really can defend a guy like Nico Collins. So because of that, I'll go with Texans -3 in this matchup. They get the job done and move on to the divisional round. So that's our mushing hour for the wild card weekend. You could do the hypothetical matchups we have if you take those spreads and what the divisional rounds would be for the two of us. But outside of that, Johnson, let's make our picks for who will be in the Super Bowl and who do we think is going to win the Super Bowl. What do you got?
Seahawks versus Bills, with the Bills winning the Super Bowl.
Hmm. Now, are you doing that because you want the Bills to lose?
What do you think?
I know. Okay, I figured that.
Come on.
I know.
Come on.
Uh, I pretty much spoiled it earlier. I said the Bills would be in it if they win the game against Jacksonville. If they don't win it, the Jacksonville will be in it. I've got Bills versus the Rams. I feel like the Rams, I know they had a really bad end of the season. I just feel like out of all the teams in the NFC, they still to me are, I feel like, the best team in the conference. I feel like they're gonna play Seattle in the NFC Championship game at home in Seattle. And I just think that the Rams get the edge in that matchup. I think Stafford, of course, potential MVP, depending on what happens between him and Drake May. The two defenses are great. I just think the Rams are a slight better than the Seahawks. They should have won both meetings with Seattle this season had they not choked earlier on that Thursday night game. I've got Bills and Rams in the Super Bowl. And for my Buffalo brethren, I won't pick Buffalo because that would be a full-time mush if both Johnson and I picked them. I'll go with the Rams to win the Super Bowl. I liked them earlier on the season. I know, of course, my Super Bowl pick originally was, I believe, Green Bay and Baltimore. So that's already out of the window. I'll go with Rams to win the Super Bowl. But I think you had what, Buffalo and Detroit at the beginning of the year?
I did.
So one of those teams. So both of us at least had one of those teams in there. But yeah, the other teams has no shot. And I will say, looking at our preseason picks before we wrap up tonight's show, I think we both had, what was it, 8 teams, correct? Out of the 14 for the playoffs? Just different combinations you and I had.
8 teams, so not bad.
Both had the Bills. We both had the Patriots. Both had the Rams. And let me see. Green Bay, Eagles. I think those were the only similarities we had. You had Texans, Chargers, 49ers as your other teams. And I had Jacksonville, Chicago. Trying to say the other one. Denver. I think that's it. If I'm doing my math correctly. Yeah. So not bad. At least both of us, somehow, some way, both getting the exact same amount of picks for both of us. So could have been worse. Could have been worse. And you and I desperately needing some decent picks in the wildcard weekend because it's been a rough year for us picking the NFL. So we'll see what happens. But that will do it for this week's edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show, the first Super Show of the year. We'll see if we do another one later on in the season. Johnson, any final thoughts before we wrap this one up tonight? Get ready for a big slate of football. Yeah.
Go Patriots and go Johnnies. And the Knicks, please trade Karl Anthony Towns. I can't take it anymore.
Yeah. For your sake, for the weekend you just had, hopefully it's not as bad this coming weekend for you.
I'm due, right? That's what the kids say. I'm due.
You could be. Yeah, you know what? You might be due. It's a long story that we'll save for off the air, but Johnson really could use a Patriots win on Sunday. I'll leave it on that. We'll see what happens on Sunday with this matchup with the Chargers. But as I mentioned, great week of football upcoming, so we'll see how it all unfolds, and we'll recap it next week here on the show. That's going to do it for this week's edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. Tomorrow gets everything started in the football world with the Fiesta Bowl. Number 10 Miami, number 6 Ole Miss. Continues on Friday with number 5 Oregon, number 1 Indiana in the Peach Bowl. And then we go into the NFL Wildcard weekend. Starting on Saturday, Rams and Panthers, Packers and Bears. On Sunday, it's Bills, Jags, 49ers, Eagles, Chargers, and Patriots. And then the football week concludes on Monday Night Football, Texans and the Steelers. Next week, we'll recap all of those games, and then we'll preview the the College Football National Championship game, as well as previewing the divisional round in the NFL postseason. For Nicholas Pavona and Andrew Johnson, this has been the All Gas No Break Sports Show. Have a great rest of your week.